Hello YouTube, we are on the Real Programming channel. It's about HTML and CSS. My name is Andrei. This is our 63 lesson. I greet you. We will talk about it's time to take a little shortcut, but there's more. Here's another common way to abbreviate margins or padding. Top and bottom are the same, right and left are the same, top and bottom, right and left. If the top and bottom as well as the right and left margins are the same, then you can use a shorthand. And what about the border properties we maintained? You can use a shorthand for those two. Rewrite border properties as one property that can be in any order you like. This code. The border shorthand is even more flexible than margins or padding because you can specify them in any order you like. These are all perfectly valid border shorthand. And don't forget the shorthand for backgrounds. You can also use shorthand for backgrounds. Like border values can go in any order in shorthand. There are also a few other values you can specify in this shorthand, like background position. And even more shorthands. No description of shorthands would be complete without maintaining for font shorthands. Check out all the properties we need: the font for font family, font styles, font weight, font size, font variant, and don't forget line height. Well, there's a shorthand that wraps all this into one. Here's how it works. Here are the properties that go into the font shorthand. Ordering matters here unless we say otherwise. You must specify font size. Finally, you need to add your font families. You only need to specify one font, but alternatives are highly encouraged. These values are all optional. You can specify any combination of them, but they need to come before the font size property. The line height property is optional. If you want to specify one, just put a slash right after the font size property and add your line height. Use commas between your font family names. So let's give this a try. Here are the font properties for the long body. Now let's map those to the shorthand. We are not using any of these, but that's okay, they're all optional. And now let's write the shorthands. And here's the shorthand version. Whoa, that's quite a shorthand, huh? You're going to be able to double your time at the slopes or on the pitch now. There are no dumb questions. Should I always use a shorthand? Not necessarily. Some people find the long form more readable. Shorthands do have the advantage of reducing the size of your CSS files, and certainly they are more quickly entered because they require less typing. However, when there is a problem, they are little more difficult to debug if you have incorrect values or the wrong order. So you should use whichever form is more comfortable because they are both perfectly valid. Shorthands are more complex because I have to remember the ordering, and what is in the isn't optional. How do I memorize it all? Well, you'll be surprised how quickly it becomes second nature. But those of us in the biz have a little secret we like to call a references manual. Just pick one up, and should you need to quickly look to up property names or the syntax of property. Just grab your handy reference manual and look it up. We're particularly fond of the CSS Pocket References by Eric Meyer. It's teeny and makes a great reference. Exercise. It's time to put all your new knowledge to work. You'll notice that at the bottom of the link there is a small section with copyright information that acts as a footer for the page, and the div to make this into its own logical section. After you're done that, style it with these properties. Let's make the text really small, fine print, and let's enter the text. We're also setting the line height to be normal, which is a keyword you haven't seen yet. Normal allows the browser to pick an appropriate size for the line height, which is typically based on the font. And let's add some top margin to give the footer a little breathing room. And while you're at it, have a look over the entire long CSS file. Is there anywhere you might want to simplify things with shorthands? If so, go ahead and make those changes. I saw the nice job you did on the elixirs. Can you give us a hand with the music recommendations on the site? We don't need much, just some simple styling. The long President DJ, all the SD titles are in italic font styles and all the artists are in bold. Brain Power, what do you think is the best way to style the SD and the artist in the what's playing at the long section? I was thinking we could just wrap EM and strong elements around the SDS and artists. On most browsers, that's going to give us italic and bold. Adding spans in 3 easy steps. Span elements give you a way to logically separate and line content in the same way that div allow you to create logical separation for block level content. To see how this works, we're going to style the music recommendations by first adding span elements around the SDS and artist, and then we'll write two CSS rules to style the spans. Here's exactly what you're going to do. You're going to next the SDS and artist in separate span elements. You're going to add one span to the SD class and the other to the artist class. You're going to create a rule to style an SD class with italic and the artist class with bold. Steps 1 and 2, adding the spans. Open your HTML long file and locate the who's playing at the long heading. Just below that, you'll see the unordered list of recommendations. Here's what you look like. Each list item consists of the SD title, a comma, and then the music artist. Let's try adding span to the first SD and artist. Just add a span opening tag along with the class attribute and value of SD. Next, add a closing tag after the SD title. Do the same for the artist, nest it in a span element, only this time put the span and the artist class. Step 3, styling the spans. Before we move on, save the file and reload it in your browser. Like a div, by default the span has no effect on style, so you should see no changes. Now let's add some style. Add these two rules on the bottom of your long CSS file. We are going to add a rule for each of the new classes, SD and artist. For SDS, we'll make the font style italic, and for artist, we'll set the font weight to bold. Test driving the spans. That's it. Save and reload. Here's what you'll see. Now, the first music recommendation has the correct styling. Nice job! This next one's for you. Exercise. You need to finish the job. Add span elements to the rest of the music recommendation music and test your page. You'll find the solution in the end of this chapter. And there are no dumb questions. When do I use a span rather than another inline element like mo strong? As always, you want to mark up content with the element that most closely matches the meaning of your content. So if you are emphasizing words, use m. If you're trying to make a big point, use strong. But if what you really want is to change to the style of certain words, say the name of albums or music artist on a fan site web page, then you should use the span and put your span elements into appropriate classes to group them and style them. Can I set properties like weight and on span elements? Actually, what about inline elements in general? You can set the weight of inline elements like span, em and strong, but you won't notice any effect until you position them, which you'll learn how to do it the next page chapter. You can also add margin and padding to these elements as well as border. Margins and padding on inline elements work a little differently from block elements. If you add a margin on all sides of an element inline, you'll only see space added to the left and right. You can add the padding to the top and bottom of an inline element, but the padding doesn't affect the spacing of the other inline elements around it, so the padding will overlap other inline elements. Images are a little different from other inline elements. The weight, padding and margin properties all behave more like they do for a block element. Remember from chapter 5, if you set the weight of an image using either the weight attribute in the image element or the weight property in CSS, the browser scales the image to fit the weight you specify. This can sometimes be handy if you can't edit the image yourself to change the dimensions and you want the image to appear bigger or smaller on the page. But remember, if you really want the browser to scale your image, you may be downloading more data than you need. The image is larger than you need. The element and its multiple personalities. We'll talk about this in the next lesson. And this is our 63 lesson is over. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel. Please put likes, share with friends, comment, eat bananas, chocolate and nuts, drink more water for the effective work of our brains. Bye.